always heard that the Third World War was the war on consciousness.
Yeah.
And it was the battle for people's minds for you just to be, I guess, what's the best word? For you to be just stood over. And letting that happen and believe that's the way that things should be. Well, what's your take on this?
It's actually, if I can refer to the raw material, that was channeled by Don Elkin in 1980s and 1981. Basically, we have two group of people, or soul, what we call service to self and service to others. You can call it also service to self in the path of separation, and service to others is in the path of unison. Now, it's what is interesting is actually in the last couple of weeks, I listened to interview with Putin about America. And Putin said collectivism in social Russia and individualism in America, they don't talk to each other easily because the concept is different. And this is the way of separating. Because in the individualism or service to self, you got the hierarchy. You got to compete. Everybody is competing with everybody else. Who is going to be on top? Then he is controlling the rest. While in the service to others, is everybody, like our body is 50 trillion cells and they're working harmonically, harmoniously, and as one. And not, I'm going to be better than you.
Well, the homeostasis in the body breaks down, and that's when you get sick. Yeah. That makes sense.
And it's actually in the concept of, particularly the American concept, which is already brainwashed. If you hear about collectivism, socialism, it's communist. Just like it's the biggest taboo.
Well, it's kind of interesting that you bring that up, because also on the show today we did a pre-record with one of Paul's friends who is actually in Russia, Scott Butler, and he has a unique take on it. And what I'll do is I'll actually introduce you to Scott, and we'll listen to what he says about what Russia is like in this sort of scenario.
That will be interesting.
Yeah, well, Russia's thriving at the moment, actually, funnily enough, despite sanctions and things like that. I've been here 7 years now, and just seeing the changes in people's way of thinking, firstly, and also just the streetscape of Moscow, for example, just is evidence of how the country is progressing.
So what is the mindset of the people over there? Are they kind of similar to what we have here in Australia, or is it totally different?
I think in general, people are generally much more aware of the goings-on of the big machine because they've experienced it firsthand, generationally. They've been through so many crises here, and they see how that functions and how, the corrupt tend to take power by force and things like that, and the weak get left behind.
Because there's so many people as well. There'd be so many people compared to Australia of just like, and when they rally together, obviously they can do stuff.
That's true. Just in Moscow, they say there's over 20 million people if you include all the kind of illegals and the, extras that are here, immigrant workers and stuff, of which there are many, many thousands, even millions, possibly. There were a lot more a few years ago, but since that most recent economic crisis, particularly with the collapse of the ruble in the last 18 months or so, quite a few have left. But things are turning around. The ruble's stabilised, and people are working, but there's still a lot of problems here. That's one thing that I think the West kind of, I say in the West is a bit of a broad generalisation, but people outside here seem to want Russia to progress much faster than it's kind of logical. Things like the gay issue, which took in the West, 50 years of struggle for people to get their rights. Here, it's only been 20 years since the end of communism, and there was 10 years of chaos, and since then there's been 10, 15 years of stability. So the idea of like some kind of revolution people aren't really interested in it because they've seen the chaos that results from that kind of thing. So, I just think when I saw last year the ruble go from like about 30, 32 up to 80, I just imagined what would happen in a Western country or in America if that happened over there.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But here, people are pretty calm. Sure, people made moves to try and protect themselves and things like that. And because of their previous experience, a lot of people had saved their money in different currencies. And in fact, I know quite a lot of people that did quite well out of it, actually, because they had already started saving in US dollars, and that. So they did all right.
So I guess, is it the same sort of thing? We're looking at a perspective where a lot of people we think are in turmoil in all these different places, but really it seems quite stable. It seems like the communities in various places know what they're doing. They know that they're protecting themselves against possibilities of something happening. But it seems like, in a sense, where everything is dire, we're going to this World War III. It doesn't really seem like it. It seems like we're finding collectively ways to avoid that sort of theatre playing out.
Yeah. What I sense also, people are like having enough of all the fights. People turning off television, don't see television anymore, don't see that. It's all bad news about that. But in their awareness, they want to be living lovingly, nicely, harmoniously. So all this competition, try to get more better and more power, is only happening in this top level of echelons like the...
It does seem like it's a Game of Thrones to tell the scenario where it's just the only people who are really battling with each other are these guys, these proposed kings of corporations who are there to pretty much tackle each other and take each other out how they seem fit. But what's your take on it?
It's interesting because certainly there's a lot going on energetically at the moment, and I think the media makes a living out of spreading and distributing negativity and separation. It's fair enough that we've got a reasonably comfortable reality at this point in time, but if we're living in Gaza or Syria or Libya or somewhere at this point in time, our perspective reality might be quite different.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think there's these it's in the death throes at the moment of survivalism, where they're resorting to invasion and occupation of countries because of financial systems not being sustainable anymore. So they're just basically moving in and raping and pillaging other countries to take their assets.
And that does seem like it would be a death roll, wouldn't it? That's like you're going, oh, well, we're just going to take stuff now. And that's when I'm sure people are just like, wait a second, buddy. No. And that's where I think people collectively get together at that point.
Now the conflicts, actually, what I can sense, in the old days, is robbing the assets. Want to have more. But now, lately, let's say, the war is between the good and the evil. Now is everything disclosed. You have done this, you have done this, you have done this, and people don't like it. Now it's the war. There is no war between countries anymore, actually. It's between the people who did something.
Well, it is. You're exactly
badly.
right. This stereotype is that like these people are good, these people are bad.
The corporations, the bankers, things like that.
All that they're about, yeah.
It's not a nation against nation anymore, but people against the oppressor. And now what is actually intuitively, now we have all this refugee crisis in Europe and everywhere. Now the trend is actually, you see, the government, the politician and everything is rather obsolete. We don't need them anymore. Soon, I don't know how soon, probably 10 years, 20 years, probably we don't even need the nation border anymore. Just open to everyone.